Hello, Sean. Delighted to be chatting with you. How's life in Baltimore?
Life in Baltimore is great. It's almost like a little bit of Liverpool coming up
Oh, yeah.
because I will be seeing some of your favorite sons, Mr. Richard Starkey, on June 14th here in Baltimore at the Lyric Theater,
Wow.
and Mr. Sir Paul McCartney on June 12th at Camden Yard Stadium.
Brilliant.
So,
What, in
yeah,
concert? In concert?
yeah, they'll both be in concert. And yeah, I'm hoping because they're both going to be in Baltimore at the same time,
Yeah.
they will appear. One of them will appear at the other's concert.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's quite a historic occasion. And they're not getting any younger, but they're still out there,
No.
Performing.
Yeah, I've seen both of them perform in the past. I'm looking forward to it again.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a great start. And one of our airports is named after the Beatles, John Lennon Airport, Liverpool.
Yeah, that's great. I plan to come to Liverpool. I really, I've only ever been to London,
Yeah.
but I do plan to see Liverpool. And my wife has, her family is from Wales.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a pub that her family owned. We're going to go and check and see if it's still open.
Well, at something like 2/3 of the pubs in all of the UK have shut down, and for one reason or
Really?
another. Yeah, with the smoking ban in pubs, I think that lost them a lot of customers. I think the growth of places like Costa, coffee houses, people are going to those type of things instead. And it's just more of maybe a health conscious thing. Plus the price of beer, supermarkets prices in comparison are, percentage wise. It's a shame,
It
really.
seems odd in England without pubs.
It does. Yeah, it doesn't seem right. Oh, well, can we talk about you then? You're an editor, producer, screenwriter, and novelist.
Yes.
Should we split it into 3 seconds, maybe? Talk about your career in the film industry, and then about the novel Chapel Street, and then maybe about, can't say it, Revelation Road, the new Sony streaming series.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk. That'd be great because usually when I'm interviewed by someone, they either want to talk about the FBI work I've done for films,
Yeah.
or the novels, or the haunting that inspired the novel,
Yeah.
or the films. So it's great. I'm very happy to be here with you. I want to thank you for having me on, and I'm glad I'm going to have a chance to. I'll talk about anything. And the problem with me is I will give frank answers. Sometimes my answers are more frank than the interviewers would prefer because they have a vested interest sometimes.
Okay. No, that's brilliant. I'm delighted to be chatting with you. Your first film, 21 Eyes. Can you tell us how you got into the film industry?
Well, I always wanted to be a writer, and at first I thought the only way, because I'm a kid from Baltimore, which is a it's a mid-sized city on the East Coast of the United States, and I was a movie fan, and so no one I knew had ever been in the movie business, and no one was a film writer. But I had a neighbor who was a journalist, so I'm like, well, that is probably the only way I could ever be a writer. So I was studying journalism and in college until they brought in a bunch of successful journalism students from our university, and we interviewed them. And then once they told me how much they were making, I decided I had to make a change, and I switched my major from journalism to film, and I also took an English minor, concentration in writing. After college, I went to work for an advertising agency, which I recommend to anyone who'd like to work in the film business.
Yeah.
Because in advertising, you're essentially making 30 and 60-second movies, and you learn the whole process, dealing with the clients, like dealing with the studio.
Yeah.
And you learn to work with directors, writers, producers, crew, post-production. It was a fantastic learning ground. And while I was at the agency, I started writing scripts. And when I left the agency, I decided I was very lucky. The first 3 scripts I wrote, 2 of them got serious Hollywood attention. And when I left the agency, I got a really nice agent, an agent who was known for breaking writers. So it looked like it was all going to happen, but it turned out it was still another 10 years before my first produced film, 21 Eyes.
Yeah.
And I got that essentially because Barry Levinson, who directed films like Diner and, Rain Man,
Yeah.
You know, he's from Baltimore. He's a big Oscar winner.
Yeah.
And my agent sent him one of my scripts, and Barry didn't go for it, but he wrote that I was a very good writer in the rejection letter.
Yeah.
And I knew someone, a local director who knew Barry Levinson, and I took the letter over to him and I said, can you verify that this is actually Barry's signature? Because it was very exciting for an Oscar-winning writer to say you're a very good writer.
Yeah.
And this director looked at it and said, yep, that's authentic. That's Barry. And I'm like, great. And that director ended up directing my first movie, 21 Eyes. So, you know, I had known him as a producer for an advertising agency, but he looked at me in an entirely different light once Barry praised my writing. And we wrote a couple scripts together, and one of them was 21 Eyes. It was a edgy, independent mystery from what's unique about the film is it's two detectives who are assigned, there's a robbery, a bloody jewel robbery, and it seems to be an open and shut case. The two bandits were killed, and it looked like everything was set, and two low-level detectives are given the task of watching the camera footage. And what's unique about this film is you never see the detectives. You only see what they see on the television screen. So they're putting tapes in and watching them. And like when they take tape out, it's like if you take out of your VCR, the screen just goes blue. But you hear them talking throughout the entire time. You know, if it's the house too, if they see nudity, they back up and watch it again because there's just a bunch of guys watching tapes at, 2 a.m. Yeah. But as they're watching these tapes, logging these tapes of the robbery, they begin to see little inconsistencies and discover that the robbery wasn't what it seems, and that the robbery was not a failure, that the robbery was a success, and they solved the mystery. So that director, Lee Bonner, I worked with, great guy, producer, Dave Butler, great guy. And the film was, I wouldn't say a huge financial success, but it was indeed a critical success. It was in I don't know, maybe 30 film festivals.
Brilliant.
And those people who saw it really seemed to enjoy it. So it was great.
Does that open doors for you then? It was Steve Buscemi doing one of the voiceovers.
Yeah, now not Steve, his brother.
Yeah.
Brother
I saw the surname, and I jumped to that conclusion.
Here's the funny thing: they sound identical.
Okay.
They both have the same inflection, tone of voice. Yeah. If you didn't see that it was Michael Buscemi, you would think it was Steve Buscemi. And the difference is Michael worked for scale, and he was terrific. It was like having Steve in his own way. Yeah. But the funny thing is, he was kind of unnerved because they didn't do the voiceover to the film. We recorded them separately. And so he didn't know what was meant to be. The film is very funny. Some people call it a mystery comedy. And he didn't realize what was a joke and what wasn't. So, and he would see us in the booth. He's in the booth doing the voiceover, and he'd say a line that he thought was straight. And he'd see the director and the producer and I just burst out laughing, and he had no idea because it was a joke, because on the page it seemed straight. Yeah. But we had a great cast. We had Fisher Stevens, who's a well-known actor, but he later became an Academy Award filmmaker for making that documentary about the dolphin slaughter. I forgot what it's called. And we had Rebecca Mader, an Australian, who sadly for us, we were told she was hot. And I mean, she was hot, but her career was getting ready to take off. Yeah. She became a regular on the TV series Lost.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, it happened after we signed our deal for distribution, because had we had a star of Lost when we made our deal, we would have gotten more money and the film would have gotten more visibility. Okay.
You can't watch this.
Au contraire, it's our duty to watch this.
This is evidence of a crime.
It's a crime, all right.
Amazing, huh?
What?
That it's all done on tape.
As far as I'm concerned, there's reason enough to reopen this case right now.
Collison thinks it's an inside job.
But I don't consider this case closed until I know who betrayed me.
So, who's the inside man?
I've got it narrowed down to the 6 of them.
What about Talbot?
Dunbar looks guilty as sin. He knows about the hidden camera. That's a great
What kind of security guard breaks down his piece when he's on duty?
This guy.
Strike
Go back to the start.
How do you like Cal?
He's not your type.
What about her?
For the inside man?
I like Morty.
Why?
How about Carlson?
Because it's always the one you least suspect. It's always the one you least suspect.
It was great. It was a great cast.
Yeah.
It was my happiest experience in filmmaking, was that
Brilliant.
film.
Since then, you've had 14 produced films with
Yes.
writing credits. Are you involved from the start? Does someone come to you and say, right, here's an idea, or are you writing the screenplay and then sending it off to agents? How does that work?
Well, in those cases, this film did open the doors for me.
Yeah.
The fact that I had an agent who was Stu Robinson, who was Robinson, Weintraub and Gross, and then a partner at a big agency, Paradigm. Now, my agent had died by the time 21 Eyes came out.
Yeah.
But the fact that I had such a big agent, and the fact that I had a film that was getting great critical reviews, really helped me. And all the next 11 scripts that were produced were all commissioned works. You know, people came to me and said, hey, you know, we have an idea. Sometimes it's just a couple sentences.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a worked out treatment. And I would just write the scripts.
Okay.
So they were all paid jobs.
Yeah. Well,
And because I was doing so many paid jobs, I didn't have the opportunity to do as many spec scripts as I would have liked.
yeah. So is that your full-time occupation now? You a full-time writer? Is that that's your job?
No, no, I'm also a film editor, and I've done all sorts of things, but now I'm working a lot in reality television for the Discovery Network.
Yeah.
Mainly, I was for a long time mainly working on reality shows for TLC.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they play all around, but like 90 Day Fiance is a show I worked on a lot.
Yeah.
My 600-Pound Life.
Yeah.
You know, lots of shows with short people.
Yeah.
You know, little people.
Okay.
You know, so I do a lot of reality television, and I really enjoy it because I find reality television often very hilarious. You know,
What would things go
I mean,
wrong?
just the whole concept of it, I find hilarious.
Yeah.
And I will say that I really enjoy working for Discovery, and now Discovery is merging with Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
You know, so it's going to be one huge corporate conglomerate.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm very happy about that too.
Okay. I've been looking at your website. Can you explain your involvement with the FBI and a filmmaking with the FBI?
You're the second person to discuss this with me from England. The BBC once came and asked me about that.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I used to have a link to the BBC interview, but they took it. It's no longer available on any of those BBC sites.
Okay.
But that's like when I felt, oh, I'm really making it as a writer, when the BBC comes to Baltimore to talk to me about something. So I was really excited about that. They came to my little house here and talked to me. But basically, the FBI likes to do like true crime films. You know, they'll do, if something's going on, in this case, espionage, like, you know, I'm not telling you any secrets that the Chinese are constantly trying to steal our secrets, other powers, and not just military or government secrets. Particularly with the Chinese, what they really want are like industrial secrets, you know, proprietary processes to make products and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, technology, they want to steal technology. So the FBI wanted to do a true crime film that became Betrayed, which won some Emmys. And but in this case, they didn't. Usually for like shorter films like this, most companies or government organizations would get like a technical writer or a copywriter, but they did not want that. The production company wanted a screenwriter. So this involves one of Baltimore's other great directors, John Waters, who's like an independent director, has done films like Polyester and Hairspray and all. And the production company called someone at John Waters' office and said, hey, do you know of any local screenwriters who are good that we could call to about a project for the FBI? And someone at that office recommended me. And it's really exciting. You know, I've done a lot of commissioned work, and But the thing about the FBI, unlike other, it's not like a corporate video or an industrial where you deal with the people in advertising or PR.
Yeah.
What they do is they set you up with the agent who broke the case.
Yeah.
You know, the business people, the media consultant, their staff might sit in on a meeting or two. But after that, when you're working on the story,
Yeah.
you are working with the actual field agents who are breaking major cases.
Okay.
So you get all the stories because they want these to be as close and accurate to the reality as possible.
Yeah.
So that was very exciting. And for Betrayed, the purpose of that film was to show government workers and ultimately business people too, like 6 different warning signs that they may be betraying your organization or the government.
Yeah.
And to portray them in a natural way, consistent with an existing case.
Yeah.
So, there were a lot of little clues, that you could just watch, seeing your the person working right next to you and their behavior. That might indicate that they're involved in espionage. And so that's what it did.
Yeah.
It was a great film. I really loved working with the people.
Yeah.
And what was really controversial for the FBI about that is, for me, the writer, I got to find a hook into the story.
Yeah.
That tells the story in a way that these people who have a stake in the FBI, the intelligence services, and the viewing audience will do it. And I said, let's look at the story predominantly from the point of view and motivation of the guy who betrays the country, the spy. And they were like, wait a minute, we're kind of telling this story by the bad guy's point of view. The FBI really thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
And that's how we did it. So essentially, it's a top-ranking FBI agent who ends up spying for a foreign power for reasons that come out.
Yeah.
And after he's arrested, it's sort of his colleagues looking at his behavior. They're shocked and why they didn't see this in advance, because they're all professionals.
Yeah.
So that was the story of Betrayed.
Okay.
And other ones, there was like I like what's called The Company Man, and these are all about a half hour long.
Yeah.
And in that one, it was involving an actual case involving an actual American corporation where a Chinese, and I hate to make it sound like it's always the Chinese, but the Chinese wanted a process that this company had, and they were saying, open a plant in our country, and we'll open our market to you, but you have to give us some investment. You have to bring that process here. But they realized if they brought that process there, they would no longer have any control over it. And when the company turned them down, the Chinese intelligence people tried to compromise an employee who was looking for a job, and they're like, take a job here with us. It's in the same field. And then as they went along, it was like, hey, give us what your company has.
Yeah.
And it's a true story. And to me, the hook of that story was what made it very interesting is it was a highly technical process. And normally the FBI would propose an agent to deal with the Chinese spies, but in this case, they felt it was easier to train the company employee into counter espionage than train an agent with the technical knowledge to talk intelligently about this process.
Yeah.
So it was just a normal American citizen who was, put into this, what do you call it?
High risk.
Yeah, and in this mission, where he's appearing to be selling secrets to the Chinese, but he's double agent.
Oh, yeah.
They've essentially made him a double agent because the Chinese view him as their agent, but he was really working for the government.
Okay.
So that's probably my Betrayed and that film are my favorites.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And I was very lucky because originally these were just going to be shown to like stakeholders, but the military had a cable network called the Pentagon Channel, and they were looking for content that they felt was good and helpful to the country. So they were, so they ran these films and they won some Emmys when they appeared. but I'm not an Emmy winner because the writing never won, but the films won. So I wrote Emmy-winning stuff, but I am not an Emmy-winning writer.
Yeah, but it shows you part of that quality, doesn't it? It must
Yes,
be
it was.
great job on the CV. Yeah.
It's very proud. I wish I bought. I should just send in because I do not actually have the Emmy, but I wish I did. So I should order one because if you order it, they'll send you one with the what it's for on it. And all,
Yeah, but without your writing, there'd be no Emmy, there'd be no production. Well, unless somebody else wrote it, of course.
Yeah, and I will tell you one thing. I like the people the production company, which was Rocket Media, and the director Tom Failue and the producer, Ward Lahardy. They were great guys, and they really had great production values. And nowadays, like everyone has aerials because of drones, but we had aerials in ours because we had helicopters. Wow. It's like, oh, can we borrow the FBI helicopters for this shot? So it was like, I was really happy. I'm very happy. I'm as proud of those as any of my features because I really enjoyed working on those films. Yeah. And it's really cool to get behind the scenes and talk to these agents who worked on, cases that made the national news, and hear all the spycraft and everything that allowed it to happen. Yeah. And how they broke these cases.
Okay, so there's authenticity there shining through.
Yeah, and that's what they really want. They really want these to be authentic. But I will say, in case anyone wants to kidnap me and get the secrets out of my head, I do not have top secret clearance, and none of the information they shared with me was top secret.
Okay. Moving on.
So please don't kidnap me. Please don't hack my computer. Yeah. If you want to know what I know, watch the films. Yeah. Everything I know is in the films. Yeah,
I'm sure you got minders, that they're keeping an eye on you in a car over the road.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. I think I see a car parked down the street out the window there.
They're looking out for you.
Yeah, they're two guys in there smoking cigarettes and watching the house. They're both wearing these fedora hats too.
Oh yeah. Proper FBI kit. Sure. To move on to your novel then, Chapel Street, was this a big jump in your from your visual medium onto internalizing writing?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, continue. No, it was a big leap. Because it's funny. I had written some novels earlier, but they were sort of like novelizations of screenplays I had written, and I was never happy with them because I always felt like if you write a mystery, you got to write like Dashiell Hammett. If you write a horror novel, you got to write like Stephen King. So I always struggled with the concept of voice. But in the case of Chapel Street, it's let me tell you what it's about real quick.
Okay.
It's about a young man battling a demonic entity that has driven members of his family to suicide for generations. Yeah. It's a horror novel, though oftentimes you'll say paranormal thriller, so not to scare off the people who don't want to read horror novels. Yeah.
The terrifying spiritual warfare of The Conjuring meets the insidious neo-paganism of Hereditary in Chapel Street, the highly acclaimed novel by Sean Paul Murphy, published by Touchpoint Press and inspired by an actual haunting. Rick Bakos never had a chance at happiness. After the tragic death of his father in a car accident, Rick grew up to helplessly watch both his older brother Lenny and his mother Agnes succumb to madness and suicide. Nor were they the first members of his family to kill themselves. Suicide has stalked the Bakos family since they first arrived in Baltimore from Bohemia at the turn of the 20th century. Turning to genealogy to better understand his self-destructive family, Rick works as a volunteer for the website restingplace.com. After photographing the grave of Betty Kostak for the webpage, Rick finds himself drawn into a maelstrom of horror. Each night, he steps closer and closer to self-destruction. Rick's only ally is a fellow volunteer named Terry Poskasil. She, too, has fallen under the suicidal spell of the late Betty Kostek. The couple soon discovers their pairing wasn't a coincidence. Their great-grandparents were next-door neighbors on Chapel Street nearly a century earlier. So were Betty's grandparents. Together, Rick and Terry must solve the mystery of Chapel Street before they find death at their own hands. This book is one hell of a wild ride. Sean Paul Murphy can really craft a beast of a story by artfully blending mystery, horror of the metaphysical kind, fast-paced action, and even romance. I can actually see this book becoming a movie, and it was no surprise to me when I saw that the author is also a screenwriter. I have no doubts other people will like this book, and it's a side mission of mine to introduce it to as many readers as possible.
So, it's funny, like movies, books are really grouped by genre.
Yeah.
To me, I would walk in a bookstore and just look at stuff. Oh, that seems interesting. To me, it was like whether it was interesting rather than a genre. But now that I'm in the business, it's like genre.
Yeah.
But in this case, you said personal, and this novel is very personal because I grew up in a haunted house. My family moved into it when I was 13 years old, and it was a very actively haunted house.
Yeah.
And over the time where my family had lived there, 2 of my siblings ended up killing themselves.
What?
And a couple years ago, my mother asked me whether I thought that the entity in the house was responsible in part for my siblings' suicides. And as I thought about it, that's when I wrote Chapel Street. That's, you see what the plot is, an entity driving people to suicide.
Yeah.
And it was a very difficult subject to process in the reality. It was easier for me to process it in a fictional way.
Yeah.
Now, this is very over the top. The ending is extremely over the top. But if you want to, there's so many of the details of like an actual haunting,
Yeah.
demonic type of stuff that is accurately true to my experience and the experience of my family.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the first people I let read the completed book before it was published was my younger sister, who obviously lived in the house.
Yeah.
And what she called the book was a cartoon version of our actual experiences, because she saw so much in the book that was based on real stuff. So, and it's funny, when I was growing up, while I was living in that house, we probably only discussed the haunting with each other about 4 or 5 times in any detail, because we discovered that whenever we talked about it, it like strengthened the entity.
Yeah.
And also, and this is how there's all sorts of rules, which I didn't realize until later. How you can tell whether something is ghost or demonic is that demonic will follow. And if you were talking about it elsewhere at your other house or something like that, if those who had moved out,
Yeah.
it could show up there. So it's like, we did not talk about it. But after my sister read the galley of the book, it wasn't even a galley, it was a rough book. And she said, we have to finally sit down and discuss what happened. And I wrote a series of blogs on my blog spot, Sean Paul Murphyville blogspot.com, about the actual haunting. I have 21 entries in it. They're mostly interviews with either family members or other people who have experienced things in that house, and also like the history of the house and the land. I have it back to colonial times, the history of the house.
Yeah.
So the house wasn't there, but I mean the history of the land.
Yeah.
The house was built like 1912. But so I have a bunch of blogs there, and it's called 21 St. Helens Avenue, The Haunting of 21 St. Helens Avenue.
Yeah.
And that's the actual story that my novel is based on. So in a sense, and I dedicate this novel, who do I dedicate this to? Is my sister,
Yeah.
who, no, my brother Mark. My previous book was dedicated to my sister who took her life. And
Yeah.
this book is very personal to me because it's dedicated to my brother Mark. And the story is about two brothers, one Rick Backos, who kind of is like me,
Yeah.
and the other is Lenny Backos, the brother who took his life. And that Lenny is very much like my brother Mark. So although this is a fictional story,
Yeah.
there's a great deal of reality. I mean, people in my family read this book and say, Lenny is 100% like Mark,
Yeah.
you know, so it's a very personal book. You know, it's going to be nice to work on something less personal.
Yeah. Did you find that writing that and getting it out in print was very sort of cathartic, exorcising traumas going
Yes,
on within your head?
Yes, and I think only because I wrote this book was I able to sit down. I think with my sister, that was the only reason she was willing to. Having this out like this, I think gave us the freedom to talk about it. But there were still members of my family who were hesitant to talk about it. Not everyone has been interviewed. Most people have been interviewed, but not everyone has told their full stories,
Okay.
let us say. So, but this was very good in that way.
Yeah.
And I had previously written a memoir
Mm.
about, and that also dealt ultimately with my sister's death.
Yeah.
And that was very cathartic too.
Mm.
And the funny thing about some of my films is that, you know, they were works for hire.
Yeah.
Other people, you know, they were other people's ideas.
Yeah.
But I often worked very personal things of my own life
Mm.
into those films. And it's funny, in those cases, it didn't hit me while I was writing it.
Yeah.
But then, like one of them, I was at the theater for the premiere, and I had some very personal stuff in there involving my own brush with suicide. And as I was watching the actors do it, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I can't believe I wrote this.
Yeah.
You know, because this is stuff I had never discussed with anyone. I think even my own wife. And I wrote it into a movie,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and I just couldn't believe I had done it. You know, it was just really strange.
Is that every writer's dream, seeing their work on the big screen?
I tell you what, it is every writer's dream.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you one thing, you're never happy,
Yeah.
you know, as a screenwriter.
What, so you're looking for improvement?
Well, sometimes, I tell you what, I have had directors and I've had, you know, who added things that made it better, composers that added things that made it better,
Yeah.
actors that got it in a way that even more deeply. It's really amazing when you get an actor in a film and the role really resonates with them personally, and you really see them bring something to it.
Yeah.
That could be amazing. But on the other hand, you know, a lot of times people go in a different way than you would have planned and all.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of my films I watched once and that was it. But others I really enjoy and will watch,
Okay.
you know, repeatedly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's a strange world. You know, I tried to ask once on Facebook, because I know a lot of writers, and I asked them, I said, for you writers out there who've had films made, can you watch your movies for pleasure?
Yeah.
And no one gave a straight answer. Everyone was like making jokes and everything. But the fact that no one gave a straight answer told me that they all had the same problem.
Okay.
Because otherwise they'd say, yeah, it's great. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I will say, you know, the initial screening for 21 Eyes, it was a lot of cast and crew in it. And the love for that film was, you know, and everyone's joy. And that was a comedy. So that everyone laughed when they were supposed to.
Yeah.
It was just an amazing feeling. But as good as that was, my next film was a faith-based film, Hidden Secrets, and I saw it at a film festival with my wife, and I took two of my nieces with me. It was a film festival, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the audience really got into it. And you think it's great when people laugh, because you know that's spontaneous.
Yeah.
But it's nothing compared to the feeling of seeing people cry, you know, in a film. You know, you wrote something, the actor portrays it, and the audience is crying. And my niece just turned to me and said, Sean, Uncle Sean, people are sobbing. I go, yeah, I know. So,
Wow.
it's amazing if you can ever write something
Yeah.
that touches people like that.
Okay.
And I advise writers, a lot of people are afraid to reach for that kind of emotion, because it's like, if you reach for it and you fail, it looks pathetic, So I tell, my advice is not only to go for it, to go for the emotion, because, you're not really in film. You're not trying, to me, I thought authenticity would be like if the people are talking as if you're sitting on a bus stop and the people next to you are talking. I mean, that's what reality is.
Yeah.
But, in film, reality, you shouldn't be striving for reality. You're going for heightened reality, heightened emotions, heightened feelings, but it's got to seem real. And I tell people, go for it, reach for the emotion, and if everything works, the people are going to be with you. And the other thing I tell people is to, and I'm going to write a blog about this one soon, more directly, is that the most specific thing about you will often be the most universal thing to an audience. And it's like, if something, let's use an example from like the first time you see in a movie, it's kind of a trope now, woman breaks up with a guy. Next shot, you see her crying, eating a whole tub of ice cream, that there were people who are really like that. And before it became a movie trope, the first person who put that up there, when that was in the theaters, there were thousands or maybe millions of people go, oh my God, that's just like me, So in a sense, and then they're with you completely, because anything you broke up with a girl and you did something crazy. Well, guess what? You're not the only person who did that. You might not know anyone else who reacted that way, but trust me, thousands of people did. And when you write something and you write that personal experience of yourself that you don't think other people did, other people are going to see it. And when they see that in your writing or in your movie, they're going to say, wow, this guy or this gal, whoever the writer is, gets me. They understand me. And so this thing that's specific with you will become universal amongst those other people that see it. Plus, it's better to write it that way because it's truer to you. For example, like out of my own personal experience, and this is before I was writing, when my sister died, I was there when we told my mother that she died, and she was standing up. She had entered the hospital, and she leaned against the wall and sank to the floor. And I'd, just sobbing. And I'd never seen anything like that. I mean, obviously I was in a devastated, I was barely processing stuff myself. But then a couple of years later, I saw a movie where someone told someone was dead and the same thing happened. And I was stunned. I'm like, that is so real, So, because I had experienced that, I had seen that. So when I saw it done in another film, I knew that this person knew what they were talking about. This just, wasn't bullshit, I mean, this person really experienced that. And when I was doing these films, even the ones I was paid to write for people, that's why I was trying to keep it, even though the story wasn't necessarily real to me, some of the events weren't real to me. I tried to keep the emotional life of the characters as real as possible. And as specific, like I said, when I saw, some of that stuff in that one movie that I'd never even told members of my own family. And I saw it there, later people who saw that movie would say how they responded to that scene and other things that might have been smaller and other movies that I had done. And I talked to people and they really liked these scenes, and a lot of the stuff they liked were the stuff that was most specific to me and my lived experience. Sorry, my throat's kind of.
Can we talk about this deal you've got, the Sony streaming service?
I got a
Revelation Road. Tell us about that.
This is a funny story or a sad story. I don't know which. It's a great story too.
Okay.
So I wrote these films. It's based on. I wrote these 3 films. Revelation Road. They're a post-apocalyptic.
I see the
And,
trailer. It looked like a Mad Max vibe about it. What the bits I've seen.
exactly. It's sort of like a faith-based post-apocalyptic Mad Max action films. And we wrote them a number of years ago. So there's this streaming service, PureFlix, owned by Sony, and they want action. And there's very little action in that. And they wanted dystopian and they wanted action. And there's very little in that genre, in that marketplace.
Yeah.
But the problem is I had broken with the company that made those films, literally over the contracts for those films. I had a dispute, over contract dispute with them. So I decided I would never work with them again because I felt I had been cheated. No offense. I hope nobody from that company is watching this. I'm glad you're asking at the end because they probably have already tuned out. So let me continue. I'll tell you the true story. So they hired, the director had rewritten the scripts that I wrote on the films. So the director I know always wanted to continue with these movies. And he would oftentimes, I'd see on Facebook or on social media, oh yeah, we'd love to do a sequel. We'd love to do a series. And I'm like, yeah, not going to happen. And so finally I get a call from somebody for the production company who's working as a consultant and consulting between them and Sony about product for the streaming service, PureFlix. And they wanted me, apparently they had already written 7 episodes. They had the director write them because they didn't anticipate wanting to hire me because I had a dispute with them. And they took the Sony was interested and they said, we want to see the contracts for the underlying, intellectual property.
Yep.
And so the Sony legal department looked at the contracts and they said, not so fast. You can't make this series without Sean Paul Murphy.
Brilliant.
So hence the phone call.
Find the shepherd, save the girl.
Had my eye on this one.
I'm not for sale.
The games are about to begin!
The choice is yours. All you have to do is take my hand. These end of times are hard times, filled with sadness.
Why are you still here? It's almost time.
Time for what?
I have to go back to the Holy Land. We will meet in Jerusalem and we must bear witness to what happens there.
Does the day go by when people aren't trying to kill you?
So, my wife was very bitter about this company. And when I hung up, I knew who this producer was. And he's a guy I would wanted to have worked with because his name's John Shepard. And it's a very small world. And I'd heard of him. I'd never met him or talked to him. So I was happy to get his call. But once I found out what it was for, and my wife found out, she said, under no circumstances for any amount of money will you sign with these guys to let them do this series. And that was my inclination too. But the producer, John Shepard, is a very thoughtful guy, very smart guy, and he certainly knew how to handle me. And I felt he was being completely honest and completely straightforward. So ultimately we worked out a deal. And in a sense, the deal made good all of my the previous contract dispute I had with them. The deal compensated for me for all of that, and more so. And because the episodes were already written, my writing on this series was going to be strictly 3 words: Sean Paul Murphy on a contract.
Brilliant.
But the amazing thing about those 3 words is I made more for each of those words than I used to make a year when I was a producer for an advertising agency.
Wow.
So it was good. And I didn't feel I was being cheated at that advertising. I'm like, oh, I'm making good money. This was a long time ago. Yeah. But So I was very happy. I also get, because it's based on my IP, partial IP, I'll get co-creator credit, and I get passive. They don't pay residuals on streaming anywhere. You know, that's not been worked out yet, how to even do the math to get residuals. However, I get royalties on each episode made for the length of the series. I get the opportunity to write on the series later, you know, and I also get the right of first refusal or right of first negotiation on. Sony would like to do a graphic novel based on the series, and I'll have the right of first refusal or negotiation on that as well. So it's an excellent deal. And, you know, I hate having a bitter relationship with, usually when I work with people, I work with the same people a lot for a long time, because usually things work out pretty well. So I'm glad to have worked with these people again to sort of bridge over the hard feelings. I'm glad that there's a series. I hope it runs 10 years, even if I never write it. But also, this is just a sign. It's like a total blessing. It was totally out of the blue. And, you know, I talked to, first thing I did when this producer called John Shepard is I called some friends in the business and asked them, so, you know, Shepard, well, you know, can he be trusted? And everyone gave him glowing reviews. And so, you know, I was happy to work with him. You know, all I ask is honesty, you know, to deal with people and know that they're telling you the truth, you know. Is
this actually getting made now in South Africa?
What?
Is it actually getting made?
Yeah, it's in production now. They're shooting it in South Africa, you know, so it's going to be very action oriented, and you know, we'll see how it turns out. It's going to take a while to shoot because they're doing 7 episodes.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
I'm looking forward to seeing it too. It'll be very interesting. The director wrote them, and I worked with him on the other scripts. You know, I would write the things and he would rewrite it. This time he wrote them. So, you know, I wish him the best. I wish everyone the best. I wish Sony the best, Pure Flakes the best, Pinnacle Peak the best. You know, Gabe Sadloff, the director. Kudos to you, dude. You wanted to do this, and now it's happening. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to the actor, and even the star, David A.R. White. Congratulations to him too. And I will say that my relations with the company, you know, the technical things, you know, getting paid and wired and contracts, you know, everything was done really smoothly and with a great deal of care and concern. So I'm very happy.
Sounds like a great happy ending.
It's a very happy ending. I think I was going to write a book about my experiences in that world of faith-based films. I was going to write a book about it, and this is the ending to the book. For the most part, it would be a bitter, disillusioned book, but it will have a happy ending now.
Happy days. I think Sean, on that note, I think our time's caught up with us. But really appreciate your time. I've totally enjoyed chatting with you.
Well, I love to have being on here. Thank you for taking the time to talk. And I've been watching some of your other episodes. So
thanks for that.
I'll be looking forward to seeing this.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Can we book a future chat in time, maybe after the series is out there?
Oh yeah, I'm always happy. In fact, I'll have another book out soon too, hopefully. And love for you to talk about that. Anybody should check out Chapel Street. So,
well, what I'm going to do, Sean, I'll put a link to your website, to the book, and anything else I can think of. I'll put links on to the finished.
Okay, that's great. I did do a little video trailer for it too.
I've got 3 of them actually. I'm going to include on the edit. I'm going to splice them in between. So all good stuff.
Oh well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. Okay. Well, I'll thank you and let you go. Cheers, Sean. You take care.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.